On this episode of Supervision Simplified, we are talking about something that you may not know exists. Did you know that there's a tender for clinical supervisors and supervisees? Sort of, kind of, without the dating. However, if Tinder wants to sponsor us, we're totally down for that. So this episode, in case you didn't figure it out, is all about the Clinical Supervision Directory, otherwise known as the CSD, that is ran by my amazing co-host, Dr. Amy Fortney Parks. So make sure you tune in to find out all about how you can get on this.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Supervision Simplified. I'm Dr. Amy Parks.
And I'm Valarie Harris.
And we are so excited to be with you today. I'm especially excited because we're talking about my baby and brainchild, the Clinical Supervision Directory.
Yes, I'm very excited too that I'm going to be asking you all kinds of questions to give our listeners a really good overview of the CSD and along with the lawn care that's happening at your home.
Yes, exactly. And he's almost done.
Because we believe in being radically authentic, which means lawn care happens sometimes.
We were going to try to wait until he was done, and I thought he was done, and he's apparently not. So
I think he wanted a cameo on the podcast.
But God bless him, because it's like 100 degrees outside. So
that's so true.
Go
and
for
I'm
it, man.
so glad we are indoors doing this.
I'm so proud of him.
Yeah, kudos to those out there right now across the world doing these jobs.
I love him. Exactly.
Yes.
And speaking of that, we need people to help us with all the things. So
Yes.
One of the things that the Clinical Supervision Directory is doing that we're going to be talking about today, as well as your Educate and Elevate company, is sponsoring this podcast. So thank you to the Clinical Supervision Directory for being a sponsor of the Supervision Simplified podcast. And
Yes.
as a thank you to the Clinical Supervision Directory, we're talking all about all things CSD today.
Yes, we are. So I wanted to start by two things, and you can answer them in whichever order feels best for you. So I wanted to know how it came about. Like, what was the problem you sought to solve, or the thing that really, launched you into that, and the pain points. And then the other part that I wanted to know first is the vision of the CSD. So whichever makes sense, whatever order answer.
Yeah. So, it was interesting. And I think I started thinking about this maybe in like 2019 and into sort of 2020 and the start of the pandemic. And then during the pandemic sort of got pretty serious about it. But I had been noticing throughout my journey as a supervisor, over and over and over, how many people came into supervision and how many people I interacted with on a day-to-day basis in our field who reported having difficulty finding a supervisor. And they would say things like, I had so much trouble finding a supervisor. I couldn't find a list of supervisors. I asked a friend of a friend of a friend, and they gave me this person's name. I wasn't able to locate, if there's a list somewhere. I don't know how to get credentialed. I don't know this, like so many questions about finding a supervisor, mostly about the finding of a supervisor, but also a lot of questions that came up just generally because people weren't connected with skilled supervisors or weren't connected at all yet with anyone that could really give them good guidance. And so I started thinking, well, surely, there's got to be a way to make it easier for people to connect with supervisors and find a supervisor. Because one of the things I knew also as a university professor was that as our students were graduating from internship, they were languishing on their parents' couches for long periods of time without being able to find a supervisor because they had no idea where to look.
Wow.
And so, it's not, our universities are required to some extent, inherently, to give them guidance as to sort of what's your next career move. Mm-hmm. But nobody says, for most schools don't say, here's the URL for the state of Maryland where you need to go find a supervisor and let me really kind of hold your hand through this. And what I had started to really see was people required that. not only because the databases in the computer systems are incredibly complex, and these lists, if they exist at all, are buried deep, deep, deep in the bowels of these licensure, board sites, but also because that's sort of the student mindset right now. That's really kind of where we are. People need more handholding when it comes to understanding this. It's pretty complex, and I get that, and I understood that. And so that was a really big pain point, was that people were not able to find supervision quickly and efficiently. And what should be keeping us all up at night as experienced clinicians in our associations throughout the US is how to get clinicians trained and licensed as quickly as possible. The way to do that is to make sure that they get connected as quickly as possible with a great supervisor, because they start from the ground running, they go. And they don't sit on their parents' couches waiting to find a supervisor. So in the state of Virginia,
initiative. So I think about that as an initiative and driving that. And you would think that the boards would drive that, the state boards, but they definitely don't. And they're very slow. And then, the ACA can't, or I don't know if they can, but doesn't seem to be able to have the leverage needed with the state boards to drive that as an initiative. So that opens the space for something like the CSD to come in and say, hey, not only should this be an initiative, but it should be one that's being driven and being driven in a consistent way for our field. And so
yes,
I'm curious, do you think that by having the CSD, I'm just curious, do you think that that's illuminated yet? Or are people catching that?
Well, that we're going to get to that part of the conversation, because that's definitely my 2025 goal. So let me say this, that I don't want to, I want to be clear. So that was the pain point. That's the big pain point. Individual states have some individual states have directories where you can find a supervisor. Hawaii, for example, Alaska, Florida, Texas. Certain states have done this at the state level. Some states have lists that you can sort of get access to and reference. Sometimes they list the person's name and their zip code. Maybe they give an email address. Sometimes they're accurate. Sometimes they're inaccurate. But in defense of the states, there is nobody requires states to provide this information. They are only required to credential supervisors. They have no requirement that says, give these, provide this list. They're only required to credential supervisors. That's it. And so, in their defense, if they've created, Ohio has a good an emerging one too. In their defense, if they are creating such a system, good for them, because they've seen the same problem I've seen. The bigger pain point, however, is yes, it needs to happen and exist at the state level, but it's more complex than that. Because you've got people that go to the University of Nebraska, but they live in Tennessee. And when they leave school, they have to go to a new state to find a supervisor. Or they're in the military and they're moving from California to Texas to be at a new base, and they need a new supervisor. And so navigating the state to state to state problem did not exist at all. And I thought, well, surely one of our associations has solved this problem, because they must see it as an issue. But they, as you said, have not seen it as an issue or as an initiative, because they're still sort of thinking of it in silos at the state level. And so I said, okay, what if we had one URL where everyone that graduates from college, from master's programs, just goes to one URL and puts in their state, and they got all the supervisors for that state. And then not only did they just find out the supervisor's name and zip code, but they actually got a bio and a photo and a map to their office, and they found out what their pronouns were and what their specialties are, and if they have business experience and all the good stuff you need to know.
Right.
Because we don't get any of that in these basic lists.
But you get it in every dating app out there in the world.
Exactly. So there you go. We are the Tinder. Right. We are the Tinder of supervision without the dating. That's exactly it. The Tinder, or I don't know, maybe Tinder's not cool anymore, because I don't have any idea. But We're essentially that. We're the Tinder of supervision without the dating. And then, and so that was what that was what I envisioned. And I actually asked a few friends of mine, I said, I have this idea. Do you want to go in on it? And they were like, no one really wanted to just like commit. And I was like, I'm not going to play around. Like I'm doing, and that was before you and I had met. I know you would have done it with me. Right.
Absolutely.
But I was like, asked a few people and I was like, this is a great idea. I really think this is a great idea. And they're like, that's a great idea. Like that, I got a lot of that. That's a great idea. And I'm like, I think it's such a great idea that I'm going to do it.
Yes.
And so, again, that was the pain point. And the vision is, to answer your question, the vision is different actually from when it first started.
Okay.
So the initial vision was to reach every supervisor in the United States one at a time and get them in the directory, which I have now learned is like fishing in the Atlantic Ocean with one fishing rod on a rowboat.
Oh.
It is very difficult.
I could see that.
Yes. That was a great vision and way too like crazy town. So the new vision is to convince our big five associations that this directory is a value add for their members. Because when you join your association, now there are going to be people, of course, that aren't in an association. Those are the outliers. We can still fish for them. But for every association, when you join an association, you would pay a small extra fee to be listed in the supervision directory as a supervisor. And you would have a directory listing. You would also be a member of ACA, AMCA, NASW, AAMFT, or you'd be an RPT. So you'd be, although APT has their own list, but anyway, and actually so does AAMFT, but they're still isolated to those. So you have to know to go there. And if you're an AAMFT, like you don't know that LPCs can go to you. Anyway, all those associations make this a value add. And then you can choose, hey, well, for $15 more, I can add this directory listing. And then, and I don't want to compare us to the Psychology Todays of the world because I'm not like a big Psychology Today fan for various reasons.
It's totally different
and
model.
We're not public facing. Be very clear. We're intentionally clinician facing. This is not public facing in any way. But the vision again has changed because I am only one person. I have a very small, dedicated team, and it's hard. It's a hard slog. Because when you have a dream, you gotta work hard to get people to believe in your dream.
Yes, and sometimes it's hard to create that clarity.
Yeah, and I have a lot of clarity, and I also get tired.
No, I meant for others. Like you
for
have
others.
the clarity.
You're right.
But they're not in your brain, and so when people are visionaries, they're going to latch right on. But when they're more of the implementer, which you need those to take anything forward, they have to be able to see it with you. And sometimes that's hard to like get it to where they can see it.
Yes. So that's, I know that we're not talking about like the difficulties, but that has been the major difficulty. And so that has guided a change in the vision. Okay. But ultimately, don't you think it would be epically amazing if there was one place? Imagine if we were grad students and we got a postcard when we graduated that said, congratulations, go home, take a nap, and tomorrow get on this website and find a supervisor.
Oh yeah. No, that would have been amazing.
I mean, what more can you ask for?
I know,
what more can you ask for?
Yes. So then talk to me a little bit about the mission of the CSD. The mission as it stands to the members of the CSD, to the ones utilizing the services, and to the more, corporate or the bigger organizations. Yeah.
So the mission really has two avenues. There are really two missions. There's really they don't diverge. What is the other word for not diverge? They come together into one place, but they're two sort of separate. We serve two different sort of communities right now. So the mission for two pipelines, right? And they merge in the woods or whatever. Okay, so I'm very passionate about this. I'm going to get like crazed. But
I
anyway,
know, I love it.
so for the supervision seeker, the person who is looking for a supervisor, the mission is to connect you with a competent, skilled, professional supervisor as quickly and efficiently as possible, and to be able to provide you with whatever guidance you may need in navigating that relationship in the beginning and continuing to support you throughout your journey through, we do some ongoing newsletters and some training and things like that. For the supervisor, that's the person who actually pays for their listing. So supervision seekers are free. The supervisor pays for their listing. For the supervisor, it's a little different. Like there's got to be some reason why you're in here. So the mission there is a bit different, and it's to create community. Because the truth of it is that when you get to the point of being a supervisor, you're quite often isolated from many different opportunities that you maybe had prior to being a supervisor, for case consultation, for connection and collaboration, and for the opportunity to get higher level supervision related training in ethics and supervision. And so our secondary sort of mission, or our parallel mission, not secondary, they're not ranked, but our parallel mission is to support supervisors in a community. And so we do that by providing, which we'll be providing this fall, monthly case consultations, and the Supervision Summit, which is in the spring every year. We had our first this past year, which is absolutely amazing. And right now it's a virtual conference for supervisors just to enhance their skills and advocate and elevate supervisors, and then ongoing training opportunities in ethics and supervision. So those are really the two sort of parallel missions there. And it's so exciting to me because I do know that the association that supports supervisors in our field, which is ACES, which is a fantastic organization which works really hard to support supervisors, quite often spends more focus on supervisors in academia. And part of the reason for that is because we have 660K CREP accredited universities, and they take up a lot of time, and they take up a lot of our attention. And those supervisors are working with all the interns, and they require attention and focus. But what ends up happening is the people that are supervising outside of academia often get lost.
That's right.
And so even the professional conferences do a lackluster job. I don't want to say they're not trying, but there's just a lackluster focus on the outside supervisor, the non-academic related supervisor.
Yeah.
And so the goal of the Supervision Directory is to really marry both of those, not to create silos. This is an anti-silo website. This is to get rid of that, because that is not the strategy that is going to bring people to this profession and advance them to the next level of licensure. It will not. The more we divide, the thinner we become. And we need to be unified and share this responsibility together in order to move, this community to the level of being able to support the ongoing needs of our serious mental health crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. I love the way you stated that and the way the two can go together. And I really like that you created clarity around ACES and why, because I have often wondered, why do we focus so much on university supervisors? Why are we so focused, or why does the ACA focus so much on school counselors? But when you really put the numbers out there, that makes a big difference. And that absolutely, not that school counselors aren't important, because they absolutely are. It just, I think in my view, or my purview, it seems like there are just fewer of them. And so I'm like, it feels like there's a lot going into them, when I'm like, but I don't feel like I only know like maybe a couple. But then when you think about how many schools there are, or the challenges being faced by schools or universities, it really does make a lot more sense of why they are getting a lot of that focus. Right. But yet it does also make sense that we still need that focus too. And so I like that you point that out. Can you tell us what have been some of the biggest obstacles along the way in, being the founder of the CSD and the president, CEO, whatever that position is, like what have been some of the biggest challenges?
Yeah, so my official title is CEO, and you kind of touched on it already, which is this idea that the focus of our professional organizations is definitely on bigger organizations that, frankly, in all transparency, have more money. And
Mm,
so, a University of Southern California and a University of Maryland and a Stanford and a Johns Hopkins, they can pay the association dues. They can
mhm,
pay for their supervisors to get training and to be members and to do all of that kind of thing. And the individual Joe Schmo who's supervising in Tennessee or Colorado or Ohio has maybe a different type of funding source, has different funding sources. And so I think the biggest challenge again is this fishing in the Atlantic Ocean metaphor that I use often, but it's really my own mindset, to tell you the truth. It's
mhm.
really, I started this thinking that, doesn't everyone want to be a supervisor? I mean, everyone should want to be in this directory, and
Yeah.
everyone should want to do that. Everyone should want to support this, and everyone should believe in me, and everyone should believe in this idea that I have. And the fact of the matter is when you envision something, first of all, your best friends will believe in it and they'll all join and they'll all be in it. And then after you've kind of gotten those people in, and then the next circle of people around those, then you really start doing the hard work. And not
Mhm.
everybody wants to be a supervisor, and that's totally okay.
Right.
But again, my mindset around I have to talk to individual people one at a time, which I'm totally about. Like, I'm on LinkedIn all the time. People keep thinking I'm a bot. They're like, "Are you a bot?" And I'm like, "No, actually, I'm a human being, and I just fed my dog just peed on the carpet or whatever." Like, seriously, people are like, "Are you a bot?" Like, you're on here a lot. And so I do talk to individuals all the time, but my mindset was I have to talk to individuals one at a time to make this work, and I
Mm,
absolutely can't do that anymore. I
yeah.
can't. I can't, because we won't be able to continue doing this if I keep doing that. That is
Right.
too small
Yeah.
minded. And
Yeah.
it's interesting to sort of tell you this, like, from a business owner's perspective too, that, like, I have realized I actually was, even though this idea sounds really big, I've actually been thinking about it too small.
Ah.
Um, which is hard as hell, because it's super scary to think I have to reach out to major associations and say, "Here's my idea." It's like going on Shark Tank.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, like, here, do I have to wear a costume and, like, dress up and sing and dance? And, like, I got to pitch. And although I could pitch it all day long, I got to pitch it to people that might say no.
And probably will. Okay. So they
Yeah,
will say no.
exactly.
That's my understanding
Which
from
is why I
sales.
haven't done it. Which is why I haven't done it, Valarie.
Sales people are going to get what they're gonna buy in if they want it, and they are gonna say no. And there's, as you know, because we're both in the same masterminds, like there's a whole process to that. But at the same time, the messaging is different. And so I think that's what you're also saying is it's one thing to go to a fellow clinician and pitch this because the pain points are going to be different. They're going to be more personally felt between you and whomever you're talking to. Whereas if you're sitting somewhere at a university or somewhere where there's a board of directors and they're making a decision and they're not therapists and have never been therapists, but they're connected somehow to, or they're just educators, the message is different. Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're going to hear something different. They're going to be looking at something different. They're be having different considerations. And so you almost have to like shape shift, right? To,
Right.
to show up in those places. And you have to simplify your message, right? Yeah. I
Right.
mean, it has to be so clear and simple to them
Yep.
that you can deliver it quickly and then let them decide. And that's hard I know that's hard for me. I feel like it's hard for a lot of us as clinicians because
Yeah.
we speak differently,
Yeah. The good news around that is I have literally been talking about the CSD nonstop since we launched on July 1st, 2021. And
Nice.
so I am so crystal clear about the value of it that it's impossible to convince me it's not the most valuable thing out there.
Yeah.
And at the same time too, there's no value in something that people don't know anything about.
That's right.
Like if you own Amazon and no one knows about it, like if you own whatever, a certain thing that's really super valuable and no one knows about it, like, does that make it valuable? Like, I guess it's like if there's a something in the woods and no one hears it, a sound in the woods, like, does it matter? So really, I don't feel like I matter enough yet because I'm still a big secret.
Yes.
In a lot of ways, a big secret. And the people, and it just surprises me, even the people that I find that have not heard of it. Cause I'm like, I talk about this all the time, but I'm just one person. Right.
I know.
Right.
I say it too. And I'm like, these are, I'm like, what do you mean you don't know what the like,
right.
How do you,
right.
But you know,
but they don't. And that's okay because there's millions of people in the United States, millions and millions. And they, not all these people should know about it, but that's why going to these bigger associations is the goal. And that's, that's the vision. So, but okay. So that's been really hard. The mindset piece. The other piece that's sort of a win, like a highlight, but like also a low light, is managing a website. Because a directory.
Any website. Let's just be clear. Not just any website.
It's not just any website. No, this is not just
Squarespace. This is not a Wix.
No.
This is the real deal raw.
This WordPress, is a super complicated
everything just so.
WordPress, Active Campaign, complex directory. Our IT guy, I would marry him if I could. He's in India and he is my best friend.
I bet Frank would let you too.
If we didn't have him, I'm so serious. If we didn't have him, we would really be suffering. I mean, we'd obviously find someone else, but he is the glue. He is truly the glue. So, that's just shout out to Ashish because he is truly the glue. But yeah, it's a very complicated website. In fact, we were going to move the hosting to this other company. And they're like, no, we don't want to host it. It's too complicated. We keep it where you are because moving it is scary for us because there's so many parts that are at risk. It was built by a company out of England. They did an excellent job. There were a couple things that went a little haywire there, but so that was kind of a low light too, like learning how to manage things and learning that when you own something like this, a digital product like this, that it's constantly and exhaustively a work in progress.
Wow.
There is no day that you get to just not like log on. Like there isn't a day because, somebody has a problem. Well, not that somebody doesn't have a problem every day, but we get tickets a lot, about like this didn't work or I couldn't figure this out or how do I do this? And then we're all constantly looking at it like, how do we make this convert better? How do we make this work better? And I just want to lay down sometimes. I'm like, I don't even know. I don't know how to change that. I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
I've gotten really good at being able to say to Ashish, like, I want it to do this. And he's like, okay, I know how to do that. Good. Cause I don't know how to do it, but I know I want it to do that. And he's like, okay.
What would you say from a website standpoint? What are the biggest wins? Like the things that just set you, like just lit you up the most in this process? Like which little parts of that journey?
I think so on our homepage, we did a video, which is a super great promo video with a great script. And it was really fun. And getting that when we first launched, getting the video back from our video editor was fabulous. That was the best moment. Like, because I was so proud. Like the video was so good. It sold it so well. And I was like, damn, like this is amazing. And then when on the other sort of end of that is just talking to like the everyday person who's like, you mean you thought of that and now you created it? Like a lot of people are just surprised to meet like the average person who thought of something and then did it. Cause I guess,
without without the training, without the,
like it was an idea and I put my money where my mouth was and I made it happen. And I think a lot of people, I think that's fun running into people who are like, I can't believe you did that, or you own that. I've seen that. Like, I know about that. And
Oh,
I,
that's
you know,
exciting.
that's super fun. That is super fun. And I'm like, oh yeah, like I own that. And they're like, that's amazing. So those are the things that really make me happy. And then of course, when people get connected. So especially
Mhm.
when a supervisor says, oh my gosh, I got, 4 calls the other day from supervisees, because we get a ton of supervisors. We probably get 200 supervisees through the site a month. And so I'll
Wow.
get feedback or like emails or whatever from supervisors, and they're like, I'm getting like 3 or 4 calls every month from new supervisees. I don't have any space anymore. Should I let go of my listing? And I'm like, no, please keep your listing. But you can just say, in your bio, not open for new supervisees,
Right.
but available for one-time consultation or something like that.
Yeah.
So
I get emails, and I remember being really excited. I was like, oh my gosh, where are these people? And this was even before the podcast. So now that we have a podcast, I get
yeah,
even more. But prior to that, I was like, oh, this must have been from the CSD, because this person is moving into the state from another state and they
right.
want to work with me. And I'll just say from a supervisor standpoint, what's so exciting to me about that is they already know that it's a good fit, because
Yes.
they already know what I'm about. And so
Yes.
they're not just looking for a supervisor, they're looking for Valarie, the
They've
supervisor,
picked you.
because
Yes,
they've
exactly.
seen, and they make that clear in that email, is they're like, I see
Right.
you're trained in this, or you've done this is what I want to do. Or my absolute favorite is when I have a supervisor at my place of employment or work, but I want to augment my supervision
Mm-hmm.
because I want to get better in doing trauma work or attachment.
Right.
So they want to work with me to work on those specialized things, which is obviously my bread and butter. And so it excites me that the clinicians are looking at ways to get their needs met by
Right.
using the resources that are there.
And that was another big pain point in the creation, was that I knew a lot of people who had supervisors that either needed augmentation because what they were getting in supervision wasn't maybe enough or wasn't the right fit, or they were getting poor supervision from their perspective
Mhm.
and their supervision didn't fit at all. Or I met one person at a conference who their supervisor was misgendering them at every session, and they're like, I can't do this anymore. And understandably, and like, how horrible. And so, for many reasons, there just needs to be a directory where people can find, start dating and find their supervisor. And so that was really, again, like another one of those pain points in figuring that out. And so so 2 things happen. There's a mechanism where you get an email when someone reaches out to you, and hopefully it says something about the CSD that it came from the CSD. And if it didn't, let me know, because God knows I'm constantly trying to fix things. As I told you, I'm constantly fixing and changing things. But also, whenever a new supervisor joins the directory, so say one of your supervisors from your practice, which is a great way, by the way, of growing your practice as well, is adding all your supervisors to the directory, because then they start getting people that might want jobs in your
Mhm.
practice. So that's a really good value add for you as a boss. But all the supervisees that have said they live in Tennessee get an email saying there's a new supervisor in
Nice.
Tennessee.
Oh, I
So they
love
all get it. So every time a new supervisor joins from whatever state it is, or maybe you're licensed in 5 states, whatever, all those supervisees, and it doesn't matter. They could have been in this pipeline for 3 years. As
Yeah.
long as they're still active, they get an email.
Oh,
And so,
that's smart. I
yeah,
like it.
yeah,
That is very cool.
yeah,
So talk to us and tell us about what are some things that are coming up for the CSD? What are some
absolutely.
big projects? What are some, what's on the horizon?
Yeah, so we have a couple really exciting, well, I would say 4 key things that are coming that are be really exciting. So number 1 is that we're going to be offering these consultation groups that are a great collaborative opportunity for clinicians. So that's going to be starting in the end of September. And those are going to be regular consultation groups for members of the CSD who are supervisors who want to just meet on an informal basis to connect and collaborate and create community. And
Love
so
it.
that's going to be starting. If you are a member, you're welcome to join those collaborative conversations, and that'll be on the website, and you'll have access to those. We already have a Facebook group for members that are in the CSD, so it'll also be shared in that as well. The secondary thing that we're going to be doing is in the directory, there is there is a link to each state in the United States, and in that state, on that state page, is a link to the board for that state, which has already been there for forever. But we will also have a series of paragraphs, and these will be up probably by the end of October. But a series of paragraphs in each state of all 50 plus 1 states of how to become a supervisor in that state.
Beautiful.
For each licensure level. So for counselors, for social workers, for MFTs. And so we've spent the summer researching how to become a supervisor in every single state. Wow. And so that will be at the ready, because there is no listing. Even ACES doesn't have this. There is no comprehensive directory or guide to how to become a supervisor in every state in the United States. So once I pull all that together into one document, which I'm pretty close to doing that, I'm going to say to ACES, listen, I'm going to trade you this for this other thing. And so that's really exciting. And then we are also going to be providing, and this is going to be so exciting for Educate and Elevate, so I can't wait till we have that conversation. But we have created, with the help of one of our fabulous interns at the Wise Family, we have created a comprehensive guide to the NCE and the NCMCHE.
Oh, nice.
And so this is going to be a very, very valuable, really, to some extent, a lead magnet for students as they are moving through internship. The goal is there. So yesterday, I'll tell you this funny story. Yesterday, when I was teaching at George Mason, Red Bull had put a can of Red Bull under every desk in every classroom in the entire university.
Wow. And
they put a card on the desk that said, like, on one side, whatever, Red Bull gives you wings or whatever, stay motivated during your semester, blah, 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 blah. And on the other side, like a QR code to order your Red Bull through Amazon or whatever. I don't know how they did it. But anyway, regardless, every desk had a Red Bull. That is what I want to do. I want to do something where every intern has this book, has access to this book. Every graduate gets a card from us, and that will happen in May.
Oh, that is so exciting.
So that's going to be really cool. I won't be accompanied by a Red Bull, but maybe.
No, but to this day, I was in college many, many moons ago, graduated with my undergrad in 2005, and I can tell you, as I sit here, my first ever Red Bull was on the campus of Austin Peay State University. And I found out they had a sugar-free when I was excited, and I will never forget it. So whatever they're doing is working, because that was my very first Red Bull, and I remember it. And now when I see sugar-free Red Bull, it's like a little warm spot in my heart. That's because I was studying on a beautiful fall day, and the man came up and offered me one. So yes.
There you go. Well, so we're going to figure out a way to get those into the hands of every graduate, because that's a big goal. And then, so that's 3. And then the 4th thing is I'm so excited. We finally got authorized to give CEs. We already do CEs for non-live trainings, but we have now approval to offer CEs for live trainings. And so we're going to be doing 3 live supervision trainings, the 20 hours, which is the average for what supervisors require across the U.S. So we're going to be doing 3 different 20-hour supervision trainings, and then 1 advanced supervisor training. The 20 hours is 3 days, and the advanced is 1 day. And those are going to be in October, November, February, and March. And so Beautiful. Those are going to be absolutely incredible, because people ask us all the time, how do I become a supervisor? Yes. Well, individual states, again, offer the credentialing, but no one is very few people are offering it at a national level.
That's and so correct. And if they do, it's like PESI, and I'm sorry, but there's a lot that gets missed in those.
So we have a really exciting curriculum, a really exciting textbook that goes along with it that we've created. And then the curriculum is excellent. And then we have part of your being in this class will allow you to have a directory listing. And so that'll be like a value add to the class. And then we'll be able to talk about, what state are you in? And let's talk about how you become a supervisor there, which is really, huge, because most people can't even direct you to trust me, it's really hard to find out how to become a supervisor in a lot of states.
Yes, it absolutely is.
So so those are some really exciting things. Hopefully I can stay alive and awake enough. I'll need some Red Bull to do all those things. But those are our dreams and visions for the next whatever, 9 months. And if we can do those things in 9 months and connect with the associations, we'll be on fire.
Yes. Oh, I cannot wait. That is going to be so exciting. So exciting. Do you have any final thoughts or things you want to say about the CSD, and including how they can get connected to the CSD?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for being along for the ride, because I couldn't do it without you. You are just a huge cheerleader, and I appreciate it. And thank you to the team. We've got a marketing person, an incredible graphics person, our great IT person, Ashish, a faculty person that helps us out, and our admin director of operations, who's amazing. So we have a great team that really pulls together and does a lot of great things. But you can connect with us in lots of different ways. You can join the directory by going to our website, which is clinicalsupervisiondirectory.com, or the-csd.com, the-csd.com. So a lot of people spell clinical wrong. It's easy to add an I to that. So the-csd.com or clinicalsupervisiondirectory.com. But we're also on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook. And I did 5 TikToks, and then I kind of ran out of energy and enthusiasm, but I need to get back in there. So that's a thing. It's a lot, but yeah. So all the places. And then of course, through our Supervision Simplified podcast, people can reach out, but we're in as many places as we can possibly be. I try to be in the forums around supervision and talk about things. And so that's definitely how you can reach out. So my final sort of thoughts are, if you want to talk about supervision, either come on our podcast or reach out to me, because I'm the supervision lady, and I'm all about it.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you for telling us all about the directory, the Tinder without the dating, supervision, which is genius. By the way, if Red Bull wants to sponsor us, we're totally down for that, as long as you give us a few Red Bulls.
Sugar-free.
Yeah, sugar-free. If anyone has a connection to Mark Cuban and wants to give us that warm, introduction,
we'd appreciate that too.
Would take that. Would take a Mark Cuban to help develop this even further, because it really does have Shark Tank level, innovation there. So,
and if people are connected to associations or universities and they want more information, we can offer free trainings to the university students. We can offer free trainings to the states that offer CEs. So we're just all about making this the real, the place that, this is my legacy. And so, join the legacy is my sort of parting statement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate you letting me sort of chatter on about it. It's been a lot of fun. It's definitely been a journey. So many more years ahead of that.
Yes.
All right.
Close us out.
Thanks so much. Yes. And thanks so much to everyone for joining us on Supervision Simplified. Remember that the revolution starts here, and join the legacy as well at the Clinical Supervision Directory, blah, 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 and all the things. And please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends. And we'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye.